Hello, hello, and welcome back to Legend of the GLORIO Heroes, your premier Legend of the Galactic Heroes recap podcast. The Sea of Stars is vast and rather strange this week, and it's far too grand for one man to tackle, so having just recently returned from the screenshot mines is none other than my regular co-host, Iro.
It's me, hi.
Yes.
Yeah, various circumstances conspired, and we had to watch it on a television.
Yeah, yeah.
So I had to go back. I just finished going back through and taking my screen caps of those 3 episodes.
Well, I thank you for your service, Iro. You know, for those unaware, Iro is the one who always compiles the screenshots for every podcast post. You know, I tend to, just being the more maybe artistically inclined one, I tend to just pick the one for the header image. But it is Iro who collects all the good woke yang quotes. So, if you need to thank anybody for that, it's him.
Yes.
But glad to have you here, man, because whew.
So we were, a bit behind the curtain here, but we recorded the previous podcast like weeks in advance.
Yeah, like nearly a month ago, but
it's been a while.
Yeah, that is the power of the bi-weekly podcast. Gives us that buffer to
get sick and to attend events.
Yeah, to go globetrotting and such. But but globetrotting and getting sick is not what Legend of the Galactic Heroes is about.
Indeed.
At least not yet. In these 110 episodes, I'm sure we'll all be looking back at this moment and laughing during the Yang catches a cold episode. Gets the Japanese cold.
Indeed.
But yeah, so, without further ado, we got
some jam-packed episodes.
Yes. These 3 episodes we're about to cover this week are they're something, all right. They're kind of something different from the kind of something from last time, but
now that we're firmly into new territory,
we are. Yes, we are firmly into completely uncharted territory. We have no residual knowledge left to rely on, so it's all new from here on out.
And these new episodes are episode 16, The New Tide, episode 17, Before the Storm, and episode 18, The Lippstadt Conspiracy.
Indeed. And, these are some pretty weighty episodes to talk about, so, we're just going to get right into it.
Go.
So, episode 16, we jump right back in with our friend Yang Wen-li, commanding the 13th Fleet, and watching as
the Battle of Amlitzer.
Yes, and watching the rest of the FPA fleet get its shit pushed in by Reinhard and his, I keep saying a dozen admirals. I don't know if it's actually a dozen. I just say that because it seems like that many dudes, but that many dudes in their, fancy, unique spaceships. And as we saw last time, Yang's kind of caught in a bad place, but, being Yang Wen-li, he is acting as the rear guard to buy time for the others to retreat to Iserlohn. And, we get to see a little bit more of Reinhard getting a little hot under the collar when he receives the news that somehow the 13th Fleet is still holding out. And, we get some good quotes from him, is it Yang Wen-li again? And, because it's our good friend Bittenfield continuing to fuck up. Damn Bittenfield.
Damn Bittenfield. He's got Bittenfield's got a weak spot on the flank.
Yep.
And
which Yang
just
exploits.
Weak enough for Yang to burst through and escape.
Exactly. And it's and that's how Yang once again manages to live another day because thankfully, Yang's a smart guy, but also thankfully the Admiral and, not the Admiral, Reinhard and his Admirals are not completely infallible. it was Bittenfield's turn, to get humiliated, but I'm sure in the future we will see the other admirals, kind of push to their tactical limit as well.
There's
perhaps.
a good scene here where Yang asks Frederick Greenhill to put a bunch of brandy in his tea, and then also talks about the different schools of thought on the worth of human life.
Yes. Do you have that quote written down somewhere?
All right. Let's see here. He says there's two currents of human thought, that certain things are worth more than life, and that life is worth more than anything else.
It's
and that war always begins on the pretense of the first, but when it ends, it's like reinforcing the second. And so it's just an endless cycle.
I mean, Young, as always, ever the observant, kind of a very good observation that it is very easy to say that these principles are worth dying for, these things are worth fighting and likely dying for, but as always, there's always a tipping point. How many people have to die before the thing is no longer worth fighting for?
Yeah.
And, it is easy to perhaps mock the sentiment, but, when that sentiment is democracy or liberty or the survival of your people, how many... What's the limit, basically? Where's that? What's the magic number that the death toll has to hit before you are willing to give that up for the sake of the hope of living another day? And for the FPA, that number is 20 million, aka 2/3 of the entire FPA expeditionary fleet was destroyed in this battle.
Yep. And
Young
just wants to know what he can do to make it all worth it. But is there anything he can do at this point?
It's tough, because he's just one man. What can one man do to prevent the deaths of 20 million? And perhaps the paradigm shifts of this episode will answer that.
Yeah, right. So, Reinhard calls in his squad. And
Reinhard's mad. No, Reinhard don't fuck around. He's just straight up
you failed me.
Right. Reinhard is super mad. Reinhard is a fucking angry kid with a tantrum. He's like, all right, Bittenfield, if you hadn't messed up, I would have won that battle. I would have won it all the way. I would have beat Yang. I would have defeated the whole FPA. It's all your fault. Go to your room. I'm gonna talk to you when we get back. He's just so...
Bring your guilt into question.
Right. He's so, that's the thing. He's so hot under the collar. He's so impulsive.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me that Reinhard is brilliant. Nobody is denying that. But he is impulsive. He is sometimes a little irrational, And maybe it's because... And I think, honestly, this episode is a good... contrast between Yang and Reinhard. Yang spends almost the entirety of the last 2 episodes backed into a corner and up against the wall. In fact, many of Yang's most famous accomplishments are when he is in these kind of unwinnable, situations. And the thing is that
he's able to stay calm during all of it.
Yeah, this and why he is called the hero of El Facil. It is situations in which lesser men break, lesser men crumble, but Yang does not. And the thing is, it makes me wonder, are we ever going to see Yang in an advantageous position? I'm not sure, but it does make you wonder, if Yang is this cool of a cucumber when the cards are stacked against him, how fucking dangerous is a Yang, that's going on the offensive.
Well, yeah, but Kircheis has to chase down angry Reinhard.
Yes.
To get him to calm down.
Yeah, but that's the thing, right? And that's kind of what I like about this is Reinhard basically had the advantage this entire fucking battle.
But he's just mad. But he's mad that he didn't win 110%.
Right. Reinhard is.
Oh no! I only killed 2/3 of this 30 million man fleet.
Right. That's the thing, right? Reinhard is brilliant, but he's also kind of a petty, impulsive perfectionist. he thinks that he has the perfect plan. Yeah, or you know what? I think it's more. You know what I think it is? I think it's that Yang expects humanity to be inherently flawed and builds his plans around that. His
Mhm.
plans are built to like function to compensate for
But Reinhardt demands perfection.
right. Like Reinhardt's plans are probably, who knows for now, but I'm willing to speculate that pound for pound, maybe Reinhardt is a more brilliant tactician. Maybe his plans are more effective, but they also hinge on everybody following his orders to the letter.
By
But
Reinhardt and a robot army.
right, that's the yes, yes. Reinhardt's robot army, would be pretty dangerous. But I think that's the thing, right? Reinhardt doesn't take into account like people are people, and like
Mhm.
not everybody is a genius, and not everybody's gonna follow your orders with cold,
It's like how
infallible logic.
even the first like 2-3 episodes or whatever, where Kircheis has to tell him we should stop and let the men take a break. It's not something I like Reinhardt ever considered.
Right, so and in many ways, the charitable version of this characterization is, oh, Reinhardt just holds himself to such a high standard that he expects everybody else to as well. But
Mhm.
really, that's just the way assholes convince themselves that it's okay to be assholes to other people.
Mhm.
And like realistically, it's like those questions don't even enter Reinhardt's mind. Like
Yeah.
he builds these perfect plans, assuming that, oh, if I lived in a world where everybody was as hardworking and brilliant and ruthless as me and followed everything I said exactly the way I put it, because I'm sure in his brain he's like, ugh, why don't these people follow my instructions? It's so simple. If you would
Right.
just follow everything I say to the letter, we would always win. And it's a complete lack of regard for
Yeah.
humans fuck up. Like really, that's just the core of it. Honestly, I mean, it kind of reminds me a lot of a little bit of Napoleon, I guess. Kind of a similar thing, honestly, where I'm not going to say Napoleon was like this completely infallible military genius, but many of his plans did hinge on the right people being in the right place, doing the exact thing he needed them to do, and not always doing them. So
Yeah.
it's
But
interesting. But yes, we should
yeah.
move on.
We have
But anyways,
Kircheis telling Reinhardt, "You're not actually mad at Bittenfeld. You're mad at yourself.
yes.
Also, you're mad at Yang Wenli because he made a name for himself on his own."
Right. Yes. I mean, Kircheis, the good man he is, kind of cuts right to it. That
He knows what to say to Reinhardt to
yes.
get him to back off.
Again, Kircheis is Reinhardt's humanizing, moderating element. It's
Yeah, and so we
quite
also have
frankly.
we
Yeah, go ahead.
even then, and to like add to that, Oberstein is like Kirk. Does not approve of Kircheis being in such high standing with Reinhardt.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think it could go both ways, right? Like, if you look at it from Oberstein's perspective, in many ways, Kircheis is perhaps, quote unquote, the one illogical action Reinhardt has made,
Right.
to put Kircheis in such a high position. And that's not to say Kircheis doesn't perhaps deserve it, if what we've seen, Kircheis is a brilliant commander, in his own right.
Yeah.
But from Oberstein's perspective, perhaps the thing that worries him is that Kircheis, tragically, more than just being, undyingly loyal to Reinhardt, perhaps the most tragic thing about Kircheis that Oberstein knows is that Kircheis is a good person. And a good person is not necessarily the best person for that position.
He won't do what needs to be done.
Right, which in many ways I think is why Reinhard. I mean, I think Reinhard knows this. That's why he keeps Oberstein around. He's like, I can't make Kircheis do this ratchet shit I'm about to make you do, Oberstein, but you'll do it. So,
Yep.
But yeah, so they returned back to the Empire. Meanwhile, the FPA returned, back to their territory, and things changed dramatically.
Yeah, some major political restructuring going on both sides.
Both sides, yeah, it's kind of interesting. I guess I'll talk about the FPA side, and you can talk about the Empire or something. But yeah, so the FPA, because of the 20 million casualties of their 30 million strong force, the entire government is kind of thrown into disarray. They kind of, realize, maybe a little too late, maybe 20 million casualties too late, that the war was a bad idea. And so they appoint one of the three council members who voted against the war. And of course, because this is a fair and just universe where good people are rewarded, Job Trunicht is the one who was appointed temporary head of the council. And, this is the kind of moment that really makes you realize truly, like, people like Andrew Fork are shitheads. They're greedy, selfish assholes, but they're also stupid. The terrifying thing about Job Trunicht is that he's a greedy, selfish asshole, but he's also fucking smart. Like, we all kind of...
this would happen.
Yeah, we all predicted this is what would happen, is that Job knew the FPA was going to lose the war, and he knew that the council was going to vote majority in favor of the war. Like, he was so confident that the council would vote on the war that he felt safe enough voting for the dissenting side, because in the long run, it makes him look good, because he's the one who can go up to the podium and be like, see, guys, I told you all you shouldn't have gone to the war. See, I saw that coming. See, you all need to listen to me.
And now he's got more power than ever.
Yeah, and now Job Trunicht is in a dangerously powerful position. Again, let us not forget, this is the man who commands, the Patriotic Night Corps, the Space KKK, the Space fucking Fist of the North Star apocalyptic biker gang motherfuckers. Like, look, we all know Job Trunicht is a slimy piece of shit.
Yep.
It's just that, also, unlike a guy like Fork, who's, such a dipshit that he can be shouted into a coma, I feel like Job is probably going to be... I feel like Job, unfortunately, is going to be kind of a very prominent member of the FPA government for time to come, like... I just don't see him going away anytime soon, like, realistically, because, like, not only because of who he is, but also because of the political structure he inhabits. He is in a better situation than basically anybody else in this entire show.
Yeah. They're certainly in a better situation than the Kaiser.
That is true.
Yeah, as Reinhard and crew return to Odin, they receive the news that Kaiser Friedrich has died of natural causes.
Indeed.
And now there's a power vacuum.
Yes, because he did not appoint a successor before he died.
So we get some, like, good old lineage politics. You straight up have dudes, like, looking at charts of the family tree and figuring out who's going to be the new Kaiser, which get a little deeper into in the next episode.
Sure. Well, but we will just say that because this is the Empire, which is an autocratic, monarchy, and because those are always the most well-run and stable political systems, naturally, one of the most prominent candidates for being next in line is a 5-year-old boy.
Yep, who indeed ends up crowned as Kaiser.
Gotta love those neo-monarchists arguing on the internet that what we really need in these uncertain times is a strong and capable king who will most certainly be effective at his job and will most certainly appoint the most qualified person after him to rule.
I think Kaiser Erwin Joseph II will bring the Golden Bomb Dynasty into a new golden age.
Indeed. He's got a good head on his shoulders, and he has a good support network around him that most certainly won't fucking stab him in the back the first chance they get.
Yup.
But meanwhile,
old people retiring all over the place.
Yeah, because we returned back to the FPA where, as Siddelay mentioned prior to the campaign, one way or another, he saw the writing on the wall. This was the end of his career. And Siddelay retires and, kind of gives another speech to Yang that's basically just like, we need you, Yang, like, more than ever. Like, we live in uncertain times.
You see what just happened?
I mean, yes, he's basically just like, see what happens when the FPA is ruled by incompetent dickheads. He kind of talks about like how, well, thankfully Lobos is no longer, head of the fleet. Now it's a guy named Admiral Kubersley, I believe. I don't know if we've met him yet, but they dropped his name. And that
And
Bukok is kind of
probably going to be
unofficial fleet commander or whatever.
Mhm.
Or I'm sorry, I think Admiral Kubersley is next, like Siddeley's position, and Bukok is the fleet commander.
Mhm.
Which, hey, you know what? Bukok's a good man.
Yeah.
He
yelled at Andrew Ford.
Yes, he did. Funnily enough, like we talk about Bukok like he's this great guy, but also we've technically never actually seen him in combat. We don't actually know how good of a general he is, like technically.
Got a sick mustache.
But he's got a sick mustache, and he suffers no fools. So you know what? I hope you live a long and healthy life in this show, Admiral Bukok. But more importantly, Yang, because of this, is now chief of staff. Kind of with that comes the new responsibilities that come with it.
I think he takes the position at Iserlohn instead of that, though, or is he also chief of staff?
I thought those were like kind of rolled into one, like chief of staff and I don't know, head of operations at Iserlohn.
He's definitely promoted to admiral.
Yes. Anyways, kind of the point is Yang kind of gets kicked upstairs yet again, to the chagrin of everybody else. But he is now the kind of like head administrator of Iserlohn, so
Yep. And
now we'll kind of see where that goes for him.
And Reinhard is promoted to Marquis.
Yes. And, Marquis and also, Space Fleet Commander.
Yeah, commander of all the entire fleet.
Yes.
Like those 3 dudes who were busted a few episodes ago. Now all 3 of their offices are concentrated on Reinhard.
Yes. And I mean, that's a good callback because it kind of tells you that, like, that's why Reinhard didn't care about those positions back then, is because he knew it wouldn't matter.
Why would I take one when I can get all 3?
Right. Like, I'm going to be running this whole shit soon enough anyway, so,
Yeah.
But,
and High Admiral Muckenberger also retires.
Yes.
Both sides have the old guard saying, I'm out.
Right. I think, Muckenberger also is another example of a guy who, like, once again, has the political acumen to, like, and that's going to be an interesting theme, I think, throughout these 3 episodes, is basically when a huge paradigm shift happens, who are the people who are able to read the writing on the wall and react to it accordingly, and who are incapable of adapting to it. And Muckenberger and Siddeley are examples of people who see what's going on, see that, like, they're, it's not even that they don't have what it takes to play the game, but it's more they've been playing the game so long. They're,
yeah,
I don't know how old they are, 60, 70 at this point, but they've been around long enough to know this is a young man's game. Like the fights, like the clashes, like the deep-seated conflicts that are about to happen on both sides.
I don't need to deal with this.
Right,
I'm like
beyond
60.
them. Yeah, and
I'm gonna go retire and go beekeeping.
Yes, take up beekeeping. Maybe Muckenberger and Siddeley can start a joint co-op beekeeping on a planet somewhere.
And after this, we get into perhaps the most insane
thing
that I did not see coming.
So perhaps the greatest twist, and now why I'm glad we're not watching previews, is we get a bit of Phezzan at the end of this episode.
Phezzan. Captain Boris Konev drinking in some bar.
Yeah.
But mentioning he's been hired to transport pilgrims from Phezzan to Earth.
To Earth, yes. And more interestingly enough, we get a little bit of Adrian Rubinsky, doing his old fucking, like, ho ho ho, everything's going according to plan. But not only do we get the usual, him being smarmy and shitty, we get to see Adrian Rubinsky go to his fucking underground Bruce Wayne chamber, hidden in his mansion, to speak to his fucking true master, the Galactic Emperor, or as known in Legend of the Galactic Heroes as the Grand Bishop of the Earth Cult.
Oh my god, just freaking didn't see this coming even a little bit.
like the idea that the truth is that the real power that Adrian Rubinsky and Phezzan answers to is none other than the shadowy cabal of the Earth Cult, the
Uh,
religious group that wants to bring power back to Earth, the like long
Great
abandoned
Holy
planet.
Land. Oh my gosh.
It's very good.
It's so much
It's
that happened
very
within about 2 minutes of.
yes. And it's like it's the sort of thing that like I don't think we could have ever predicted because the show kind of did a very good job of keeping Earth as like a very distant
Right,
concept. Like I
like,
don't know if the word Earth was ever even brought up until this episode. Like, you know,
right.
it's a space opera, so you know,
Our
kind of like
capitals are Heinessen and Odin, like.
yeah, like you don't really internalize that Earth is even a factor, but it's a very good way to just bring in an unexpected like third faction out of nowhere that makes
Yeah.
some weird twisted sense within the confines of the story.
Just
Um,
ugh.
and of course, Rubinsky answers, you know, he's playing his own angle, right? Like we kind of see
Yeah.
that he himself is not even truly loyal to the Earth Cult. He's playing his own angle. So really, this
Mhm.
web just gets even more tangled. But it's just the fucking visual of
Of the
Rubinsky going into his dark hidden chamber and turning on the
hologram.
hologram
Yeah.
communicator with the shadowy leader of the Earth Cult is
Who says that within the next 3 years I will punish those who abandon Earth.
oh my gosh, it's like it's a fucking like that dude is a fucking villain from an entirely different TV like an entirely different TV show, man. It's just
Yeah.
man,
Ugh.
it's so much. But
Yeah. And yeah, apart from that, with the Kaiser dead, Reinhard is reunited with Anna Rose.
yes, yes. You know, kind of finally made good on his promise to save Anna Rose of sorts.
And Young is putting together his squad at Iserlohn.
Yes. We didn't even mention, but we'll just bring it up very briefly that like Hazelnu kind of gets caught in the fallout of the FPA because he was head of logistics, even though he was the person who kept insisting that the logistics situation was totally fucked. But you know, just like any good story, you know,
He does
it's
say
the
a good
people.
line. Yeah, he does say a good line here where they're like, they tell him it's not fair that you're the one taking the fall, but he says that he basically says someone has to, and a system where someone has to take the fall is better than one where no one is accountable.
Yes, I mean, again, bless the good people in the FPA that like are so earnest about their belief that the system works and that the system is worth fighting for.
Yeah.
But yes, but you know, we kind of see that like one of the first things Yang does with his newfound power is say, "Hey, you're gonna like take the brunt of the damage for this campaign, but don't worry, like keep your head down. I'm coming for you. Like I got a new job opening, you know,
Yep.
custom made just for you. I want you on my bench," which I think is kind of a good thing as well because kind of I'm glad we're starting to see Yang start to build up his own,
Yeah.
you know, he doesn't have his own freaking fleet of genius admirals, but at least he has a bench of people he can rely on,
Mm-hmm.
which I think will be very valuable. You know, he's got Kazelnu now, he's got Edwin Fisher, he's got Shenkup. Yeah, like, you know, Bucock to an extent. Like he's starting to get his own bench. You know, they're not as like seemingly
Dusty Attenborough.
Yes, Dusty Attenborough. Fantastic name. I'm glad we finally got to say his name. We have not seen him since the movie. You know, so glad we're getting him in this mix again. I don't even know if Dusty Attenborough is that special or talented, but he's got a fantastic name,
Yep.
and you know, Yang needed somebody to bounce off of anyway. So, but yeah, it's just this kind of episode ends with both sides kind of having reorganized and the political structure being permanently changed.
Yeah.
And
So I do want to bring up two specific things about Young's squad.
yeah, sure.
First, Julian is now a soldier.
Yes.
Working as officer's orderly under
indeed.
Yang, under his father. And also, there's one Ivan Konev, Poplin
Oliver?
Konev.
Yes.
But it brings up the question if Ivan Konev is related to Boris Konev of Phezzan, who
Yeah,
maybe is not an important character at all, but also
it's an interesting coincidence for sure. Right, we didn't even mention it, but when they introduce from prior episode Oliver Poplin and Ivan Konev, they kind of like those two guys in the crew that are kind of meant to represent the like rank and file like pilots, the guys piloting the tiny little ships during these big space battles. And shares a surname with Boris Konev, the guy who's kind of transporting the pilgrims. And we'll see where it goes. I'm sure it's not. Look, this is Legend of the
Yes.
Galactic Heroes we're talking about. There ain't no coincidences in this show. But
yeah.
I think for better or worse, we've talked enough about episode 16. We got 2 more episodes to talk about.
Oof.
But it's just interesting the paradigm shifts that occur. That like
I think any one of those would have been like, whoa,
right?
But then having
all
3 or 4 in one episode bowls me over.
Totally. And it's the kind of thing that speaks to the idea that like power can change unpredictably fast, and the ways it can change can be in ways that you had no bearing on. Both Yang and Reinhard kind of commented this episode that they basically had nothing to do with the huge paradigm shifts of this episode. Like they were completely out of their control, but now the important question is, how do we capitalize on these newfound changes? And that's kind of what we see in episodes 17 and 18.
Yep.
So episode 17, Before the Storm, kind of opens up with Frederica and Julian kind of hitting it off and kind of, talking a little, shit about Young and like, his life, before, all these crazy events, and basically how Young's career was immediately defined after El Facile.
Yeah.
And they kind of explained that El Facile was basically... Is it an FPA colony, I guess? Something like that?
I suppose. Some sort of.
But that was, being attacked by the Empire. The Empire was approaching quickly. And during that situation, the man in charge, Real Admiral Arthur Lynch, was this fucking dirty coward who fled El Facile, leaving millions of civilians to their fates.
Yeah.
And the only reason those people are alive, including Frederica, is because there was this young, kind of incompetent, dumbass-looking officer there who organized the evacuation and saved everybody. And that is none other than our precious boy, Yang Wen Li, hero of El Facile, Magician Yang, Miracle Yang, whatever name you want to give him. And the reason they bring this up is because, specifically Lynch and his cowardice, is because he was captured. He did not actually succeed in escaping El Facile, and he is rotting away in an Empire POW camp, and he's very bitter about it. And Reinhard sees this as an opportunity. He wants to use Lynch as a spy against the FPA to kind of destabilize it from within.
Start a coup d'etat.
Yeah. And it kind of speaks to this idea that, like, Reinhard knows that both the Empire and the FPA are actually in a rather precarious situation. Mm-hmm. Like, yes, the FPA took gigantic losses in, that battle, but with the Empire in the state it's in, they actually cannot afford to capitalize on that offense. Like, not when their succession is so in question. He needs to consolidate, and he cannot do that if the FPA decides to lick their wounds and come back again. So he kind of figures.
So we need to destabilize FPA just to take the heat off of ourselves.
Exactly. So they decide to smuggle in Lynch under the guise of a POW exchange.
Yep. At
Iserlohn, and. We were all a little worried at first, like, oh, great, are we really going to do the whole fucking spy in our ranks plot? And thankfully, no, because Yang is not a fool. He almost literally the first line he says upon hearing about this is, they're trying to pull some shit, aren't they?
Yeah, it's a thing about how POWs can't vote, but Repatriate soldiers totally vote. So it's actually greatly to the advantage of the Empire to, like, it's an easy way to destabilize things.
Oh, totally. And not only that, but also he knows that it's a thing that the leadership will agree to immediately because the, repatriated soldiers that return to the FPA are going to be quite grateful, to the powers that be.
Yep.
And so Yang kind of accepts that, like, fuck, man, even if I wanted to say no, I probably can't, so I might as well make the best of it. And, this is Yang, right? He's a smart guy. And so you kind of already start to see him making plans in this episode. And interestingly enough, we don't get to see what those plans are.
Yeah.
But, we know he's working on something. But more interestingly...
cock for something in secret.
Yeah. But more interestingly is we get to see Yang and Kircheis meet in person.
Yeah.
And
they also... I'm kind of going on off to the side here, tangent, but...
Sure.
They do go into a bit of detail on, like, the construction of Iserlohn Fortress and stuff.
Oh, yes. I kind of didn't mention that, but you're right. It's, Iserlohn is basically the SDF Macross. It's an entirely self-sufficient space colony.
Yeah. I spent a lot of time we were watching being like, 60 kilometers is too small. But then, no, I did some math, and, like, that's about the diameter of Los Angeles County.
Okay, then, like, how many people were on it? Like 60 million or so? I don't even remember.
5 million people.
5 million, whatever.
There's about 10 million people in LA County.
Yeah, so honestly, fuck, Iserlohn's probably nicer to live in than LA, so, I mean, that's not a high bar. Look,
I guess my yeah.
But that is an interesting detail.
My issue, I suppose, is more that, like, at that size, why don't you just fly around it? But...
Well, look, Legend of the Galactic Heroes is a space opera. They play fast and loose with the science sometimes, but,
Yeah, but...
Sometimes you just need your big...
5 million people in a dense city, plus facilities, military facilities, actually seems about right.
Yeah,
for that size.
I mean, honestly, it seems quite amazing, really. A self-sufficient colony of that size kind of speaks to the tech level of this setting. But, Anyway, so
yes. Sorry about that.
Yang and Kircheis meet. I think notably, Kircheis once again proving that he is the only good person in the entire empire. Kind of gives a speech to the repatriated empire soldiers that he's like, "Look, don't worry. I know."
Reinhard's speech, actually.
Or fuck, I keep messing it up. Right, it's Reinhard who does it. Right, I just keep messing it up because Kircheis is a good person and Reinhard isn't.
And this speech is totally Reinhard just, like, playing to what everybody wants to hear.
Yes, you're right. Reinhard's speech is like...
plays over Kircheis doing the stuff, so...
I mean, yes. Yeah. I mean, it's also a speech that he knows that Kircheis will acquiesce to, even though they specifically mention that Kircheis very much does not like this plan. He does not like using spies. But, if Reinhard commands it, so be it. But yes, Reinhard, I'm sorry, gives us a good speech about, hey, fuck the Empire, super ass backwards, like... Oh, POWs are dishonorable, that, getting captured by the enemy is the greatest dishonor, like, fuck that shit. Like, you're all still alive. That's the most important thing. That means you're still living, Empire, citizens. And that's more important than any, like, ass backwards sense of honor. And, like, yes, the speech is definitely entirely fabricated to just be, maximized for, good PR. But I also do think Reinhard is probably the kind of person who does genuinely believe that the whole, death before dishonor is bullshit.
Yeah. Definitely.
But Yang and Kircheis meet, and it's a very brief meeting.
There's a real good bit here, I think, where they shake hands and Kircheis introduces himself as, like, High Admiral Siegfried Kircheis or whatever. And Yang just says, "I'm Yang Wenli, hi."
Yes. I mean, it's, it's a very Yang move, right? Like, he's not a man defined by his rank. He's not defined by his station. Yang Wenli, whether it's Commodore Yang Wenli, Vice Admiral Yang Wenli, or Admiral Yang Wenli, at the end of the day, the more important thing is that he is Yang Wenli.
And every other person around him is just like, wow, Kircheis is super hot.
Yes. Everybody in the FPA crowd there is like, man, that Kircheis guy is cool. Like, hell, like, Kircheis has a longer conversation with Julian than he does with Yang,
Yeah.
right? Where he's just kind of like, hello there, young lad,
Child,
how
yeah.
old are you? He's like, I'm 15. And he's like, I was that old when I went on my first campaign. I do like his line here where, it is Kircheis. Well, the thing is, I like this line here because I think Kircheis is genuine. Like, I think he truly means it when he says it here.
Mm-hmm.
Where he's like, well, circumstances mean I can't exactly wish you success, but I do hope, I do wish, for your prosperity and your health.
Stay well, yeah.
Stay well, and it's a very, a cynical person might argue, Oberstein would be like in the corner being like, so naive.
Right.
But
totally.
it's the thing where, like, I think what we've seen of Kircheis, he truly genuinely believes and hopes that, like, he's like young. Like, if he could win this war with as few casualties as possible, he would do it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if he could crush the FPA without firing a single shot, he would. But, the best he can do is just hope that, that Reinhard doesn't kill too many people in his maniacal rise to power. But, we'll see about that.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, so finally, yes, so you kind of mentioned this earlier, but the episode does basically end with Yang kind of meeting up with Bukok in the park, kind of on the sly meeting to kind of talk about, hey, there's a spy somewhere in those POWs, and they're up to some shit. And as they're talking, we see some Earth cult protesters in the streets, and we get a very good discussion with Bukok and Yang talking about how this Earth cult kind of like they are a religiously motivated version of the pro-war party that kind of believe that the war against the Empire is actually a holy crusade, that Earth itself lies behind Empire territory, and that they must destroy the Empire to find the Holy Land.
It's excessively anachronistic, isn't it?
Yes. Some might say it is unmistakably a right-wing group. What
a great line.
What a great line. Like, that's the thing I can appreciate about Legend of the Galactic Heroes, is it doesn't mess around here. It doesn't try to dress this up in nice words. Like, it gets it. This is a, like, religious, dogmatic, and probably violent group. They are driven, by rhetoric and dogma to the exclusion of everything else. Yep. And they are described exactly as such. When Bukok says that, after beating people in the streets did not work at the Terneuzen election, that maybe some members of the Patriotic Night Corps hung up their robes and
put on new robes.
Yes, essentially put on new robes, but and it kind of gets to this idea that, like, a lot of these groups, like, especially in modern day, right, like,
they'll package their bullshit arguments in any way they can to make it more palatable to the moderates.
Yeah, like your KKKs, your Tea Parties, your alt-right groups. Like, these people are not disparate, separate groups. Or if they are, they're often only separated by, like, minor ideological differences. And, like, because they are driven by such a strong and extremist agenda, they are perfectly fine with repackaging themselves as many times as needed to as you said, to appeal to a moderate group, to a moderate demographic.
Yeah,
it is very much a thing.
Maybe I won't support, like, going to war against all these people, but I can support humanity trying to find its roots on Earth. The
Right.
the motherland.
Right. It is very much that thing of, like,
we've lost our way and we need to find.
Yeah, like, I'm not right. Like, I'm not like those guys. I would never say that we need to systematically deport and or exterminate all minorities in this country. I'm just saying we need to return to our roots, to our proper original state of being that conveniently doesn't have minorities in it.
Right. Yeah.
And I think it's a kind of a I mean, again, Legend of the Galactic Heroes always being relevant, but it very much speaks to this idea that, like, it's never been about just ideology. If it was just about ideology, then I guarantee you that KKK would be getting in fights with the Tea Party, who would be getting in fights with the neo-Nazis, who would be getting into fights with, like, the neo-reactionaries and the alt-right,
Right.
because, like, sure, on the surface level, yes, they all do have separate, different agendas that often do contradict each other in the same way that on the left, you know, many
Yeah.
people on the left can broadly agree for the same things, like the same basic decencies, but are also, definitely divided by, specific ideologies. But at the end of the day,
I think when it comes down to it, it's just about keeping your own power. Like,
yes, exactly. And so, that's kind of what the Earth Cult is doing here. And I have a feeling this is not the last of the Earth Cult we're going to be seeing.
no, we're
like,
only 17 episodes in here.
yeah, we got out of 110 episodes. God, yeah. Could you have predicted the Earth Cult in episode 1? Like, what the fuck?
No, not even a little.
God, what is this show, man? But
yeah,
anyways,
we get the, like, shady council of the Earth
right,
Cult.
right.
Well.
The Shadow Council meeting up, kind of talking about Yang Wen Li, the thorn in their side, and how they need to get somebody to infiltrate Yang's inner circle. And I guess not a lot to say there. They're conniving and scheming, but we will see the results of that. Finally, the episode ends with Kircheis kind of returning, and Reinhard being like, "So
what's up with Yang Wen Li?
What's Yang like? Tell me the details. Is he hot?" And Kircheis is just like, he has a good line. He's like, "I would call Yang our most frightening opponent, but also under some different circumstances, someone I would love to befriend."
Yeah.
And kind of speaks to the tragedy that what war does to us. It is who knows under different circumstances. I don't know if I'd ever see Young and Reinhard getting along. I feel like they're a little too ideologically different.
The boss's speech from Metal Gear Solid 3.
yes. But yeah, so that kind of is the end of episode 17.
Yeah.
And another kind of big episode, not as big as 16, but it's episode 17 is kind of more about what do Reinhard and Yang do with their newfound power.
I feel like these episodes are like, let's set up for the next big, like, 12 episode conflict.
Totally. I think everything here is, yes, it is, we had our big conflict at Amlitzer, and now it's time to, like, it's time for both sides to lick their wounds, consolidate power, and kind of get ready for the next big move.
I wonder if this is like the second volume of the novels or something.
I would believe it.
That wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, I could see that, right? Like, you have your big climax with Amlitzer in the first volume, and then second book is
Civil War and coup d'état.
Yes. So we roll right into
Conspiracy.
Yes. So we roll right into episode 18, where we return to the Empire, where we find out that the young emperor has been crowned. Humorously, the crown is too large for his head. And that not only did Reinhard and what's his name? The
Lichtenlad, I think.
Yes, Lichtenlad, the vizier, essentially. He's not actually called the vizier, but in terms of narrative, like, prominence in the cast, he's basically the vizier.
Yes.
The man kind of whispering into the emperor's ear.
He's allied with Reinhard.
Reinhard, yes. And on the other side, we have Prince Braunschweig and Marquise Littenheim teaming up to kind of form the Lippstadt League, a collection of like thousands of noble families that opposed the young emperor's ascendance to the throne and are willing to start a civil war over it.
Yeah. There's a great bit here where the narrator's talking about the, like, signing of the documents that formed the Lippstadt League, and the framing goes into this, like, painting style.
Right, very, like,
and everyone's, like, posed in a classic painting. And
yes, it's
real good.
it's once again Legend of the Galactic Heroes kind of showing its kind of subtle sense of humor at play.
Yeah.
Like the idea of portraying this what is essentially this petty coup designed by these nobles who are desperate to hold on to power as this like grand event in classical history.
Mm-hmm.
But more importantly than those losers, we
Yeah.
finally meet the girl who keeps showing up in the
Yeah.
OP.
I kept forgetting to mention that I had no idea who this person was.
Yes, we finally meet Hildegard von Mariendorf, or Hilda for short. And Hildegard von Mariendorf is kind of inheritor to the Mariendorf family, to the house.
Mm-hmm.
And we kind of meet her, and she is, once again, kind of showing that even though they don't always get a ton of screen time, there are some very cool ladies in this show.
Yeah,
and,
I forgot to mention how dumb it was that last episode, Frederica's washing dishes.
Oh yeah, that's
she's like a lieutenant.
Yeah, she's an officer in the fucking like.
The task is so far below her pay grade.
Yeah, I mean, look in the original SDF Macross, you had like those, we call them the bridge bunnies. But those bridge buddies were like ranking officers, technically, or at least the main one was. She was definitely at least like lieutenant or something of that tier, and her job was still like to serve tea to the captain or go photocopy documents for him, and it's like there are a million fucking privates you could order to do that for you. I mean, hell, that's Julian's job, probably. Julian should be the one washing those dishes, really.
Yeah. Officer's orderly.
Yeah, don't make Frederica do that. Like, she's got better work to do, like processing Young's paperwork, which, okay, look, I mean,
yeah,
at least that would make sense considering her, her
she's
position.
Like adjutant or something.
Yeah, but like washing dishes, come on. But, whatever. It is what it is. But anyway, so
seems like she's got a pretty good head on her shoulders, though.
Yeah, so Hildegard is kind of talking to her dad, the senior Mariendorf, who is kind of considering siding with the Lippstadt League because he's just like, well, they seem to have the right idea. And thankfully, Hildegard is kind of the well-studied, I mean, look, I'm not going to say she's the most original archetype of the world. The fiery, tomboyish, modern-minded princess is like, not the newest archetype of the world, but I think it works well within the context of Legend of the Galactic Heroes. I think notably is like, I mean, she wears noble clothes, when she has to play the game, right? But I mean, when she's hanging out with Dad, like when she's in the OP, like she's kind of wearing
pants,
like modern civilian clothes, hell, she kind of looks like she's dressed to hang out in the FPA, more than anything.
Yeah,
but she's like, she sees the writing on the wall.
Yeah, she just lays out point by point why we should probably side with Reinhard.
Right. She gets that, like, look, the Lippstadt League is nowhere near as unified as they look. Like, as soon as they get the chance, Braunschweig and Littenheim are going to turn on each other. They're going to turn on the rest of the nobles. Like, this is a power grab. This is because they're trying to consolidate the power that they are scared of losing. Like, if we side with them, what do we actually gain? Like, at best, we maintain the status quo. At worst, like, we further destabilize the country and we lose everything.
Yeah.
She gets that, like, siding with Reinhard. Again, it's not that necessarily Reinhard is a guaranteed winner, but if we side with Reinhard, we stand to gain.
It's a better situation for them.
We stand to actually come out of this ahead. And,
yeah, and to Papa Mariendorf's credit, he's like, okay.
He's like, oh, no, I mean, yeah.
You clearly put more thought into this than I have, so.
Yeah, no, I kind of love it, right? We're like, yes, the elder Mariendorf is like, you thought about this way more than I did, and like, pretty reasonable. He's like, hey, and you know what? You're the one who's inheriting the Mariendorf house, not me. Like, regardless of whatever decision you make, it's going to affect you. So you might as well be the one who makes the choice, come hell or high water.
Also worth noting, her father is the guy who was held hostage during the Kastrup Rebellion.
Yes.
10 episodes ago.
Like, that's the thing. I kept mentioning to you. I was like, that girl's the girl from the OP, right? In that one episode. And we were like, was she? Like, I don't quite remember. But yes, Hildegard von Mariendorf did show up briefly in the Kastrup Rebellion episode. So,
Yeah.
kind of
There's a
a
lot of characters in this show.
lot of characters, yes, but I feel like Hilda is going to be a fairly important one down the line, and
Yeah.
maybe that's just because she shows up in the OP. But point is, she meets with Reinhard, and she's basically like, "Hey, I'm throwing my lot in with you," and
For reasons A, B, C, D, E, F.
yeah, and she's like, again, she is the lady with the clipboard who's just like, "I've done the math. This is why I'm siding with you. Do you agree?" And Reinhard's just like, "Yeah, shit, okay." Like you have suggested something that sounds entirely reasonable. You know, I do kind of
This is
like
a great
that.
line where he's like, "I too wish for us to be friends."
Yes. Oh, poor precious fucking Reinhard. Like, there's a part of me that feels like this conversation is like Reinhard is very much like, he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry Kircheis couldn't be here. Like, he really would have wanted to meet you." And like, there's a part of me that just wants to headcanon my head. My headcanon is that Reinhard gets very nervous around girls and wishes Kircheis was here because he doesn't know how to talk to girls. And that, like, as soon as this
Kircheis has saved your dad, he'll know what to say.
he'll know what to say. And Kircheis is so much more handsome and popular. Like, he knows how to talk to girls. He's taller than me by like what, an inch or something. I can't even tell. But yes, I like to imagine that after this conversation, Reinhard hurriedly rushed to the phone and called Kircheis. He's like, Kircheis, I talked to a girl all by myself.
What do I do?
I didn't even like say anything weird about conquering the galaxy and that the sea of stars would belong to me.
She brought it up first.
That I would own the universe. You know, we just talked about alliances and winning the Civil War.
Yep.
But yes, yeah. So meanwhile, the Lippstadt League is
getting ready to attack.
Yeah, and they kind of mentioned that it is a contingent of 3,760 nobles and 25 million men. So this is not a minor coup. You know, this is not a splinter faction. Like, we are talking about an FPA-sized, you know, splinter army. Yeah. Which also then makes you wonder, Jesus, how fucking big is the Empire? If fucking 25 million people could just split off, like 25 military men could just split off just like that. Like, man, the Empire is pretty big.
The scale we're working on here.
Yeah. Anyways, but yes. Yeah, so, and they nominate Admiral Merkatz as the leader of the
quote-unquote nominates.
The quote-unquote nominate, as we see when Merkatz meets with Braunschweig, that Merkatz wants nothing to do with this. Merkatz, another older, you know, member of the old guard of admirals. I believe he was shown in one of like the very first episode as kind of one of the admirals that was like, you know, let's see what the young, you know, Reinhard von Lohengram has to show, you know, can bring to the table. And Merkatz, like Muckenberger, is another dude who's like, no, like, I see where this is going, like.
I don't want to have anything to do with this.
Right. I don't want anything to do with this. B, even if we win, having a civil war while we're at war with the FPA is a really stupid idea. Yep. C, the other side is led by fucking Reinhard von Lohengram. Like, the number of people on the list of don't fuck with in the entire galaxy, Reinhard is like fucking at least in the top 5 on that list. Yeah. Yes, you know, and you know, well, like, you know, in that top 5, in that top 3, number 3 is it's Yang Wen Li normal mode. Number 2 is Reinhard von Lohengram, and then number 1 is threatened Yang Wen Li, or angry Yang. Yes, violent Yang. Yang Wen Li, who has
embraced the Satsui no Hata.
yes. Yang Wen Li, who has embraced the darker powers and is out for vengeance and is no longer concerned with his humanity.
Violent Yang into the Shungoku Satsu.
Yes. Violent Yang has the most dangerous fleet formation of all. But yeah, so, you know, fucking Muckenberg giving this real shitty speech about, like, well, you know, it's us, the chosen class. It's up to us to to lead the people. We have to be the ones in power. We were chosen for it. And it's like, Mueckenberger is obviously having none of this, but then, Braunschweig, like all shitty dirtbags, then makes some kind of not so subtle threats to Merkatz's family.
Yep.
And Merkatz is like, all right, fine. All right, you fucking piece of shit. All right, I'll lead your army, but I got...
You need to give me full control of the army.
Right, he's like, you're going to give me full control of the army. I don't want my army answering to you noble dumbasses. You guys can't be trusted with military matters. And, of course, Merkatz later remarks to his, like, assistant that, like, no, of course they're not going to hold true to that. Of course they're not going to fucking hold true to that agreement. Of course, like, the second it becomes convenient for them, they're going to break it. But, I need to establish the ground rules that, like, I'm not fucking around. Like, if you want me to even have a fucking snowball's chance in hell of winning this, like, you need to give me full authority.
Yep.
And
we'll get some other people on Braunschweig's staff as well.
Yeah, so we meet
Anton, Ferner, and Arthur von Streit.
Yes, so Ferner is in a ways he's kind of the Empire's man with the clipboard. He's kind of like, hey, this is all well and good, but how are we actually going to win this civil war? Like, we can't beat Reinhard in a straight fight. Shouldn't we consider alternative options? And of course, Braunschweig is like, what? Do you dare question the almighty
victory?
Yes, like, you question the infallible genius of the nobility? Like, how dare you? Get this man out of my sight. And,
Idiot.
I'm not saying Ferner is necessarily a smart or good man, considering what he tries next, but he is definitely a man who sees that, oh, right, nobles fucking suck. This system fucking sucks.
Braunschweig is an idiot.
And so he decides to put together a small crew to try and assassinate Reinhard outright.
Which, like, if you're up against Reinhard in this situation, probably the best course of action, to be honest.
Yes, like, I'm not saying your odds are good, but I'm going to say you probably have way better chances of getting within shooting distance of Reinhard than you will ever get of beating his fleet in a straight fight. Yeah. But, look, this is Reinhard.
Yep, he was prepared.
He knew this was coming, so Ferner's little plot fails spectacularly. And not only does this backfire, like, in a way that harms him, it basically fucking sends the entire Lippstadt League up in flames.
Yep, Reinhard just starts sending troops and tanks and platoons through the streets.
Right, like, for all that this military operation is designed to stop a coup, Reinhardt's actions at the end of this episode sure look like a fucking coup.
Yeah, totally.
Well, like, basically going house to house and, like, arresting every, like, nobleman involved in this, and, like, even going to, like, the offices of, like, military men and being like, get the fuck out, we run this shit now. And in many ways, Ferner, you kind of just helped Reinhard even solidify his position even better.
Gave him an excuse to kill all these nobles.
Yeah, and so I think they say they captured like 600 of the 3,760 nobles. But so kind of notable here is a lot of soldiers turning coat here. Both Streit and Ferner basically kind of get captured or turn themselves into Reinhard, and they're just like, fuck that shit, Reinhard, you're our new boss now. And
kind of, yes. So, like, Arthur von Streit is like, I lobbied to assassinate you because that way we could avoid civilian casualties.
Yes.
And Reinhardt's like, I should have you on my side. Yeah. And Streit's like, I'm not that easy of a turncoat.
Yes, you're right. I'm sorry. Ferner turns coat, but Streit's does not. Yes, you are correct. Which I can't believe I forgot that, but I guess even that kind of in and of itself is kind of a good contrast in, like,
right,
how people kind of react in these kind of situations. Like, I guess Streit is kind of very much your more traditional military man. He's like, yes,
I don't want that man I've been following for so many years to just instantly be my enemy.
Yes. Like, and I think Strites also understands that like people who turncoat that easily
Or not to be trusted.
are not to be trusted, him included.
Like, say, Ferner,
Like
who
Ferner,
straight up
who's
is like, let me follow you now!
yeah, and Ferner I think notably does show up in the OP. So like,
Okay,
I think he's the white-haired guy in the OP.
I think
I
so.
don't know there are that many white-haired characters in
Yeah.
this show.
The Reinhard
But,
puts Oberstein in charge of him.
Yeah,
Because I think he knows.
well, here's the thing, right? Oberstein obviously knows what Ferner is trying to do here.
Yeah.
So like, you know, I'm not assuming that Oberstein just fucking takes Ferner out back and puts a bullet in his head, but
No, but
probably more likely is that if anybody is going to be predisposed to using somebody like Ferner,
yes,
it's going to be someone like Oberstein.
Definitely.
And I mean, that said, you know, like I think Ferner does have a good point here, where he's like, "What good is a soldier's loyalty to somebody who won't respect it?"
Yeah.
Like, on one hand, you could be like, "Yeah, you're a turncoat. Isn't that like the greatest like sin of all, you know, for a soldier?"
But also, Braunschweig's an idiot.
But also, Braunschweig's a dumbass. Like, what is honorable about being loyal to that man? You know,
right?
Like, nothing. Like, fuck that shit. But yeah, so many of the nobility still manage to escape, and they flee to Geiersburg, which
I guess is
going
another
to be
Iserlohn type space fortress.
Yes, kind of seems like it, which looks like it's going to be the site of the the big civil war that's coming up.
Yeah.
And you know, the nobles are all fleeing, and
we do see Baron Flegel among their number.
Yes, fucking Flegel shows up yet again. And we don't know which, I don't remember which noble it is, but one of them fucking flees in this, like, ridiculously ostentatious, like, golden ship.
I want to say it's Braunschweig's ship.
That's probably Braunschweig's ship. It's, like, the most fucking, like, gaudy goddamn thing. And, like, we're talking about a fleet that has, like, Kircheis piloting an entirely hot rod red flagship.
Yes.
And another man who commands a fleet called the Black Lancers and paints all of their ships black. And this man's ship is still over the top by those standards. Like, it's like this, like, I'm gonna be honest, it is some straight fucking 5-star stories shit.
Yes, that's like, totally what I thought of when it showed up.
It's like some straight up, like, Knight of Gold, like, fucking, like, over the top ridiculousness, but, you know, unlike Knight of Gold, which is a giant mech with a huge, you know, beam
laser
cannon.
Gun, yeah.
This fucking golden ship is a shitty coward that hides behind fleeing civilian ships and uses them as shields.
Yeah.
Which is how they are able to escape in the first place, because you know, Reinhard obviously pursues them, but you know,
not
thankfully,
civilians.
Yes, thankfully Reinhard has not yet sunk into shooting at civilians for the greater good yet. He is not above starving civilians to win the war, but he's not going to pull the trigger himself. But yeah, so...
Yeah, so he's ordered to take down the Lippstadt League.
Yeah.
Put down the rebel element.
Yes, the rebel fleet, he calls them.
This is pretty good. Of Reinhard, since now he's the chief of the military, is asked for a official legal designation to put on documents for the Lippstadt League, and he chooses to refer to them as the Rebel Fleet.
Right, like, the wonderful thing here is that, once again, Reinhardt's actions here kind of reflect what the Empire has always done to legitimize themselves and to denigrate their enemies, which is to remove their legitimacy. They are not the Free Planets Alliance, they are not the FPA, they are the Rebel Fleet.
Yep. And so now this collection of, like, right-wing ass nobles who are, like, ostensibly fighting for the true Golden Baum dynasty or whatever,
to maintain the status quo, essentially.
Yeah,
and again,
are now the rebels.
Right. It's aimed to remove their legitimacy, because to call them the Lippstadt League is to acknowledge that they are a league and that they are not a, you know, collection of shitty nobles. But, you know, it goes both ways, of course, right? Like, calling the FPA the rebels is to remove their own legitimacy. That they, oh no, you are not the Free Planets Alliance. You are not a legitimate government. You are rebels, and you are Empire rebels who are to be brought back into the fold. And it kind of speaks to the power of language, and not just language, but the way words carry meaning and power unto themselves, I think.
Yeah.
It's kind of why it's like, very much I think a lot of people will be like, it's just words, right? Like, what do they actually mean? But words have power because words have meaning. Words shape thoughts. They shape policy. They shape culture, And
Yeah.
Reinhard choosing to call the Lippstadt League the rebels very much speaks to the way the Empire has always approached treating its enemies. And
like, isn't it just very common in war across time that, like, you want to dehumanize your enemies as much as possible?
Indeed,
right?
yes. You don't call them by the name they prefer, because to call them by the name they prefer it's such a minor thing, but in and of itself is granting them a victory.
Yeah.
Like, you don't call your enemy by their desired title unless all other means have failed you, unless you are left with literally no other choice. But you know but yeah, so the episode kind of ends there with Reinhard getting ready to crush the rebellion. And I guess we'll see. I guess we'll see what this does to the Empire, because ostensibly Reinhard was sending the spies to destabilize the FPA, because on some level he recognizes that winning this civil war is going to be messy.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess we'll see how it goes, because against a 25 million strong fleet of his own people, that's almost an FPA sized fleet,
Mm-hmm.
And I guess we're gonna see how this goes, because a part of me is like, oh, if it's just Reinhard effortlessly putting down yet another rebellion, I guess I just don't know.
It's not that interesting.
It's not that interesting, right? I don't know what the stakes are then. A part of me kind of feels like, as shitty as the Lippstadt League are, I kind of feel like I need to see them put up more of a fight to actually represent what could be an existential threat to the Empire.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, what Reinhardt's just going to do is probably run roughshod. He's going to beat the civil, the Lippstadt League, grant clemency to, the men, the soldiers, to, reincorporate them back into the army, because, he cannot afford to lose 25 million soldiers. And then what? And then it's back to going to war with the FPA? If there are no actual costs here, if there's no actual, losses, then, because here's the thing, right? I think the Castrop Rebellion is a good episode because it's supposed to represent, how truly fucked the system is that people like Castrop can even exist, but B, that rebellions like this can even happen, speak to how unstable the system is. Right. And I think this rebellion is kind of meant to represent that, right? The Lippstadt League is kind of representing all of these sentiments from the Castrop Rebellion kind of coming to a head in this really gigantic conflict. But will it be as major as the scale suggests it to be, I guess?
I just don't know. I feel like we're going to get a lot of swapping. Okay, I guess that's been the entire show up until now, swapping sides. But I think it will be here's the FBA dealing with their problems, and then here's the Empire dealing with their problems, back and forth. But that does not speak to the specifics that you were asking about. But
right. Well, I mean, yes, I am just I'm just speculating. As is all we can do.
Yeah.
But it does just make me wonder, because here's the thing, right? We see cracks in Reinhardt's armor. We see him get hot under the collar. We see him lose it a little bit. We see him get irrational here and there. But again, it's just a thing of Reinhardt is portrayed as so infallible that I just don't see him struggling with this rebellion, because at least when he's fighting against Yang, he's fighting against somebody who is presented to be competent enough to be, a worthy opponent. Whereas there's nothing has been suggested about the Lippstadt League that they are in any way an actual worthwhile threat beyond their, pure numbers. I don't know, who knows? We will see, because, Merkatz was at least portrayed, we don't really see him ever fight, kind of a Bucock situation where we only kind of know him by his personality, but, he doesn't seem like an, outright incompetent commander, but, against fucking Reinhard, how will it go,
Yeah. How will he leverage this total control over the military?
Right, and that as well, right? Because that's kind of what this is all coming to, right? Is Reinhard is going to use this civil war to further consolidate his power, his legitimacy in the system. And you know, it's a thing we briefly talked about the other day after watching the episode that I want to bring up real quick is Reinhard's entire MO up till now was to kill Emperor Frederick, depose him, and save Anna Rose.
Yep.
Like, this entire
now,
thing
like,
was
half
about...
of that. Now half of that is done already. Like,
yeah, and now, I mean, the more questionable thing is now a 5-year-old boy is in power. Like,
that's right.
If Reinhard truly wants to claim the throne, he now has to take it from a child. And now the question, of course, is if Reinhard takes the throne eventually by force, is he willing to kill a child?
He'll just tell Oberstein to do it. It'll be fine.
Yeah, probably. Oberstein would shoot a kid.
He totally would.
He totally would. He would totally do it with those cold, calculating, artificial eyes. He would put that kid in the dirt like nothing. But or alternatively, right? Does Reinhard try to play the political game? You know, like, not to get all Game of Thronesy here, but like, the tragic truth is, like, actually the most logical thing to do in this situation would be probably be to, like, marry off Anna Rose to this 5-year-old kid. Because then that cements Reinhard into the lineage, like, legitimately, right? Like then he has a legitimate claim to the throne if, you know, if Anna Rose is fucking married to this 5-year-old kid. And, like, that's the thing. I don't think Reinhard would do that, but I do think because of how the paradigm has shifted, does Reinhard now have to think more about, like, the cold realpolitik of how noble courtly intrigue works? Because
he has chosen to stay within the system.
Yes, because that's the thing. He chooses to stay within the system. Even with the Kaiser dead, he chooses to work within the pre-existing system. And how far that goes, I think, will be interesting. Yes.
Yeah.
But man, I think that's gonna
heavy 3 episodes.
Yeah. It's a weighty trio of episodes here to talk about, but I think we kind of got through them as best we could.
Most things, yeah.
So, you know, I think we're going to call this a podcast. So we're going to take care of some basic housekeeping. So, as always, you can find the podcast on iTunes and on the blog, theglorioblog.com, where you can also find that as well as the rest of our anime coverage, as well as our progenitor podcast, the GLORIO Chat, where we just recently talked about the end of the summer season and our thoughts on that. You can watch or, you know, listen to the podcast on YouTube as well. You know, hey, you know, subscribe to that damn channel because we want a unique URL. Because all we can do is, like, tell you guys to Google Legend of the GLORIO Heroes and, like, click on the first link. But it would be awesome if we had a URL we could direct you guys to.
Yeah.
You know, leave a nice review, tell your friends, tell your enemies, blah, blah, blah.
You can watch Legend of the Galactic Heroes on High Dive.
Yes. If you would like to watch Legend of the Galactic Heroes, it is streaming on High Dive. And I think that'll do it. So, as always, Iro, thank you for accompanying me on this journey.
Thank you.
You know, the sea of stars is vast, but we are steadily making our way through it, one episode at a time. Any closing thoughts, Iro?
I'm really, really excited to see what's coming up because in no version of this in my head did I see so many paradigm shifts happening in such a short time.
Yeah, we are left in a place where, you know, as we've always kind of said, it is impossible to tell where we go from here. This show manages to act in such grand, sweeping gestures that seem to affect every facet of its already incomprehensibly deep setting that it's impossible to tell what happens next because, you know, again, we're only 18 episodes in. Like, there are so many possible things that can change, and there is just no way for us to tell, and that's unbelievably exciting. And on that note, I'll say thank you all for listening, and we will see you next time amongst the Sea of Stars.